Here to help you.
Okay, I call this meeting of the Architectural Review Board to order for Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. Roll call?
Roll call. Schneider.
Here.
Larson.
Here?
Utz.
Here.
King.
She's here.
Corral.
They're here.
Okay. They are by Zoom.
Okay, will everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So, I guess it's citizens' time. Would anyone like to address the Architectural Review Board for citizens' time? This would be anyone who does not have an application or presentation. Okay, minute approval. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I have none. Okay, sure. Madam Vice Chair, I would move that the Architectural Review Board approve the regular meeting minutes of the July 22nd, 2020 Architectural Review Board.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
Okay. So now we're on agenda items? Okay. Where am I at?
There aren't any.
Oh, well, that's why I can't see them.
Sorry, I'll take that. So tonight we don't have any agenda items. Sorry. We don't have any agenda items tonight. We do have here, though, Don Wooten from Melodon with Crossroads Village, and he's going to give us a brief overview of what was previously approved for the Crossroads Village project. For our new members, that is the area that is located to the right of Chick-fil-A, to the left of Giuseppe's, goes all the way back to 66, so it is the large 22-acre parcel that is currently green space. We have up here on the projector screen the images that we're going to look at tonight. I can zoom in for everybody to see. Just let me know which ones you'd like to have me zoom in as they're being talked about, and I'll do so. So Don, if you want to go ahead.
Very good.
Yep.
Would you like me to turn off the lights? Would that be easier
Yes,
for you all to see the screen?
That'd be great, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Board, for spending some time with us this evening and going through these things, and welcome to the new 2020 Board, I guess.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, we have been very excited about Crossroads Village Center ever since we've came into Haymarket and started working with you all. And together we have, I believe, made this a wonderful opportunity for a project that will be, I think it will be welcomed by many in and outside of Haymarket. I wanted to start, as Emily mentioned, and talk about kind of what we were trying to accomplish when we initially went through the Architectural Review Board. We very much like to have a cohesive project to where many of the users and many of the buildings, architecturally, color, palette, material, have got similarities and or are complementary of one another. So when we came through, we made that known, and we said we'd like to have the Architectural Review Board to weigh in on this and help us decide what all of that could look like in terms of materials as well as color palettes and so forth. And so this is I think a 26-page document that was the approved plan, but I'm currently showing page 16, which I think is the best representation of kind of everything on a page, but we can go to other pages if anybody would like to see specific buildings or anything like that. And yeah, we'll be happy to zoom in on any of these things if you would like to, to see them. So I think it's easiest to look at the elevation of this building here that's showing a few tenants, a multi-tenant building, and just see some of the colors. Let's go over some colors first. But what's representative here in some of these various colors, and it's hard to tell on this elevation, but this is what's called a cobblestone, which is kind of a light tan, and that was shown on this side of the building. Arctic white was an option, so that was an option 2, so it could be either of the cobblestone or of the Arctic white as a complementary color. Then here in this section that goes up to one of those days. I think you're going the other way. Or, no, you're not. 16. There it is. And so this is what's called a board and batten, which is going up to the peak of this particular tenant on both ends. It's shown here, and that's shown in what's called a timber bark, which is pretty representative of the color. It's a darker brown with a tinge of oranginess to it. And again, that's an alternative color there for that. So that's the primary color mix in terms of the building and kind of how that all blends and orchestrates with one another. So some of the buildings were intended to be obviously with cobblestone, some of the buildings were intended to be with the Arctic white, and some of the buildings had the batten, which is in the timber bark. So certain buildings, so it all didn't look like a cookie cutter, obviously, project, and that different buildings would vary in color and materials. So that was the whole intention. So that's the colors. Let's talk about the materials. Let's start down here at the bottom. We have a base shown in, I believe it's called cobblestone or fieldstone, and it's basically a brown fieldstone color that is complementary of the base of the building going around, and that's a stone or a faux stone. Then another element was this the board and batten, which I've commented on a few times, and then this is more of a plank style siding, which I don't know if that shows that anywhere. I didn't see it. No, but yeah, it's a plank style siding that looks kind of like a rough cut siding that goes on to the buildings. And then on the roofs, we were showing a standing seam on most of the buildings, and there was variations of color. We had up in that top left, it's a medium bronze color, and then we also had what we call the slate gray, and this is showing the slate gray here as one of the main options. So that was one of the materials selected. The next material was the aluminum storefronts. So each of the storefronts were approved as dark bronze, so it's a bronze accent color, again, just to give complement to the whole building and how it's provided there. Half-round gutters, which was again going to be aluminum color matched with the roofing. So whatever the roofing material was, the gutters would be. And then last but not least, we zoned in on the actual dumpsters because I forget who it was, but they really wanted, very specific guidelines on the dumpsters. So we actually chose a specific brick that was going to be used for the dumpster enclosures, which is that, again, more of a kind of a tan color with a tan, I think those are Trex board doors, which usually weather well, and also the trucks don't beat them up over time, so they look good for a long time. And then just as an architectural element, some of the buildings were shown with some lighting wall sconces at different locations, and then some of the tenant signs were shown with some lighting gooseneck lights that would come down and actually light the tenant panel for their signage. So those were. Am I missing something? I don't think I'm missing anything, am I? Okay. Yeah. So all in all, that was the plan. Most of the buildings ranged. Maybe could you go to the, I don't think there is one that shows the entire site, but maybe like number 2 or something, maybe, page 2. But, okay, that's fine. So if she gets there, but in lieu of that, in essence, all of the buildings were ranging in size from around 2,200 square feet, probably being the smallest building, and the largest building, I believe, was around 8,200 square feet, 8,200 square feet. Yeah, so that's, yeah. So you can kind of see how they were cited on the various ones. This is, again, another building that was shown. Maybe the same one. It's another multi-tenant building. Yeah, so some of them are single-use buildings, such as the Taco Bell. Taco Bell has came through as your process goes with their architectural renderings and what they wanted to have done, along with their site plan. And everybody had an opportunity specifically on that building to make comments and changes and ultimately approve it. Our goal is to have something that is, again, just complementary of what we're doing overall. We know that each tenant has their own real, hot buttons, as you can imagine, like a Taco Bell would want. They want certain things that trigger the eye when you're driving. Hey, that's a Taco Bell. So, they hone in on those things, but then they're usually flexible on other things that, again, make these things harmonious and work with the project. So, questions on this one, on what I've just kind of went through, and or additions that I may have missed? I think Marchant may have remembered all this.
Correct, and obviously Emily was with it too. Are we able to see the overall site? We're trying to get there? Sorry. Okay. So just for the benefit of the balance of the group, so.
I don't think it's actually on this
Really?
set.
I thought somewhere.
Slow, and you can also see the landscaping, how that plays into it as well.
So the challenge for the site is it has a lot of frontage on Washington, and it's deep. So the challenge was, how do you develop the rear of the site? It also circles back behind Chick-fil-A and Fauquier Bank and CVS. So there was a hotel and a age-restricted assisted living facility that was planned back there. 79 townhouse units that were planned up against 66. And then more or less forward of that, more or less the same dimensions of the Chick-fil-A, the depth of the Chick-fil-A, how it goes back behind it. If you would carry that across to Giuseppe's all that forward was a number of pad sites and individual buildings. Is this helpful? I'm kind of jumping into it. So there's a singular entrance, or not, there's multiple, there's a main entrance into the site that more or less crosses from where the food line entrance next to Foster's. It would be on the other side of that. It would be a main entrance. It'd be a light there. And you would go into the site that way. And those pad sites that are on the west side next to CVS and Chick-fil-A, they would have parking in front of the building up against Washington Street, similar to what Chick-fil-A and what everybody else is doing. On the east side of that entrance would be similar to what Giuseppe's did, where the buildings are much closer to the streets. It was trying to develop a transition from the auto-oriented uses on the west side of town as you kind of narrow the streetscape coming into the main part of town. So a lot of the, you'll notice a lot of that end of town is colonial. That at the time, the board had or the council had really pushed a colonial theme to try to replicate Williamsburg. When the plan was updated, there was specific direction to kind of move away from that and recognize that the town burned during the Civil War. We had to reinvent ourselves. And if you stand, especially at this corner, all the eclectic groupings of buildings, we've really become kind of that, what we're known for is some architecture's ugly. It could be subjective. But as you drive through town, you can tell it was built over time. Varying architecture, varying materials. So a lot of what you see here was the hardy plank. Oh, there it is.
Oh, wow.
So Don, could you walk us through real quick the elements of the?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so some of the buildings that we were showing you were these multi-tenant buildings. This one is about 6,500 square feet. That one was about 8,000 feet, if I remember. That one was about 8,000 feet. But what we had here is a signalized intersection on 55.
That's Washington Street there.
This is Washington Street here. And we are planning a signalized intersection here, which not only does it help, obviously, flow of traffic through, but it creates a sequencing of traffic as you're going west on 55, because everybody's commented on, you know, how difficult sometimes around the Chick-fil-A area and the Sheetz and so forth, that how that can be difficult to get in and difficult to get out. So this light's going to help sequence that, you know, give people an opportunity to get out safely or get in safely into the site. So this is what we call the main spine road coming through the project. And all of this has, you know, it's tree lined and landscaped and uplighted with, you know, tree lighting and so forth. It's kind of a boulevard feel, Main Street, if you'd call it, coming through. And then all of these are our retail uses here. And this was the Taco Bell that was approved and already has came through the ARB. And these are the townhomes in the rear, and this was the proposed hotel and or assisted living back in the back corner. So the, you know, scale-wise, you can see kind of the differences in the buildings and how that was proposed. You do have ancillary access points, which we call these either full motion or right in and right out. This one coming between Taco Bell and this building, this access point will be a full motion, so you can turn right in or left in or right out. This one obviously is full motion because it will be signalized. This one will be a right in, right out only because you have a median out on 55 there, so you can't go left out of that drive. But it gives you good relief points. And then lastly, just the interparcel connectivity was important for everybody. And so this is your interparcel connectivity to the Chick-fil-A. So there's already a curb cut in place at Chick-fil-A site. And this is actually an in only. It's not a two-way flowing. This is an in-only access point coming from Chick-fil-A through the site into here. This is a two-way access point on the backside over behind Chick-fil-A, and then it would obviously come around to the bank and the other uses that are over here. So people could come through here, right to the boulevard, to the light, and then have very easy and safe access to get on or off of 55. So that was the plan with that. Okay? That help?
Do you guys have any questions?
Just to kind of, again, kind of shooting for the benefit of the group, Emily did a good job when we came through organizing all the elements. I want to say the retail building we were looking at earlier, Don, it was the one to the right of the boulevard, right? That was the schematic we were looking at?
I think this one right here is the
Correct.
one we were looking at this year. Yeah, 6,500 feet on this building, and it was a multi-tenant building. Yeah.
So a lot of the guidance from the plan, the comprehensive plan, was to, again, provide variation, move away from the more colonial look, provide more of the roots, which was a lot of our early construction was wood construction. So a lot of this had the higher quality materials, the hardy plank siding, the wood siding, replica siding, the board and batten, which was an architectural style of some of the buildings that have unfortunately since been removed. And it really created a distinguishing look for this community compared to what was around it. So,
And the brick and the stone accents, yeah.
and the brick and the stone accents, so they were borrowing elements from other parts of the town, but it was creating enough of, as I recall, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, is giving it some unique, allowing it to blend, but giving it some unique characteristics so that when you're driving through town, you don't miss it, but it's not so overwhelming that it takes away from its surroundings, I guess, was the compromise.
That's right.
And then, I guess the Lidl building, the mayor and I had discussion with Don a little while ago, so the Lidl building, could you generally outline where the,
Yeah.
well, if we're already jumped on, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can pull that one up.
So the design guidelines were approved for the overall development, which generally regulated the texture, colors, all those types of things, so.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'll walk through just from the landlord's perspective, but I know Daniel from Lidl has came as well, and he'd like to give, obviously, the Lidl's perspective as well. So I'll do my part, and then I'll ask Daniel to pop up here, and you guys can talk to him and questions. So this is one of the early, what we call test fits that we do. And Lidl and we have worked on this together. So this is just to orient. So here's the main boulevard coming through again. This is that right in, right out that I had shown you. This was a proposed fast food. This is where the proposed fast food or gas station was going to be. And the gas, I think the gas use is shown, and it's by right. And so we've had obviously discussions with gas here. Then there was an 8,000 square foot building that was here in the back that's been removed. And then what we've retained and going to continue to have is the smaller building that will sit front and proud of Lidl and will be fronting 55 in the main boulevard here. And we do have users already defined for this building. We're just unable to announce that one just yet, but we will be coming through with that use and soon. So their building would sit, obviously, as shown here. The Chick-fil-A is, sitting over here, and the front of their store is. They always, if you've been in a Lidl, you know that their store is kind of always in the front corner section, their entry features and so forth. And then their store is long and deep that way. Loading is proposed here as far, obviously, from the main thoroughfare as possible, which is over here toward the rear of the center in the building, with plenty of buffer, green space, and so forth to to mask some of those points for trafficking. And then this is obviously their parking field necessary for a grocery use. So that's kind of how, initially we've test fitted it, and I think it would lay out for the most part. There certainly would be tweaks and other things we would do, but it's a good test fit. So, any questions on that one?
What's the approximate square footage?
31,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 31,000.
Just for comparison, is the old Food Line building, it's about the same amount of square footage? It's bigger? Okay. 38, okay.
Yeah, we think that the size is appropriate, but there's also a smaller footprint grocer that looked at it as well. But obviously, Lidl here is interested in working with us. So
The intent wasn't to say whether or not you're going over there, it was just more of comparison's sake for the.
yeah, for everybody, yeah, and I think as compared to like a Harris Teeter as an example, Harris Teeters would be typically in the 50 to 55,000 square foot footprint, so that would be a Harris Teeter look style building. So this is certainly on the smaller side of the grocer, but if you've been to a Lidl, you understand that they have all that you need, and they're a full service grocer, and they're a top quality group. So. And they're gaining a lot of presence here in the Northern Virginia area. They're really moving in quickly and building and doing quite well. So, all right. So from a landlord's perspective, let me show you an elevation of their store and how it could fit within Crossroads. So this is again that entry feature here on that corner, which would be on the. What would that be? That'd be the southern corner of the building. That would be your western corner, and then Chick-fil-A would be on down further there, so you can kind of orient. So we talked about varying colors and elements. So what we've shown here is a stone base ledge that wraps around the building in a field stone. It's got the same color in terms of the brick here, which is that slate gray. And then this would be very similar to our tans or Arctic whites up here. And this is shown in brick. This is a brick. And what we didn't show, but I thought was a real nice feature, is their wood paneling here that gives it nice breaks and accents. That's very much like our sign, our approved sign plan. We've got, looks almost identical to that. So it pulls from those elements as well. And then in terms of the storefront here, I think they're currently showing kind of a slate gray. So this is all, the awning is slate gray, and I think the storefront is shown in slate gray as well there.
Yeah, and that generally would match the coping top.
And the coping up top, yeah, up here. So one of the things that I'll go ahead and bring up, because it'll be a question, I'm sure, is we never intended in our design and going through the review process of this scale of building. And so we had no issues with the standing seam roofs as being approved on the buildings, because the largest building we were shown is about 8,000 square feet. But when you get into this scale and mass of a building, it's kind of like putting on I can't think of a word right now, but it looks out of place. When you start trying to do something on this scale of a building with a faux seamed roof, it starts looking out of character very quickly. And I'm sure Rashant could speak to that as well. But we think that the flat roof and styling is appropriate for this size of building. If it were much smaller, I think that we would certainly want the standing seam roofs. So I think they've done a good job at blending with our, with our approved colors, with our approved materials. I think you could, if you put these other buildings beside it out here in your mind, I think you could see how that, it's taking from the other buildings and blending quite well, so. Daniel, would you like to come up and?
Yeah, I would, thank you.
Yeah. There you go. Take it away.
Yeah, Don, good job. Knows a lot more about Lidl than the average developer. But hey, I'm Daniel Goodman. I'm with Lidl. I'm in-house real estate manager covering the state of Virginia with a focus on Northern Virginia currently. Our headquarters is in Arlington for US, so everyone's pretty excited about any store that I'm able to get open near HQ. So who has been to a Lidl store? I know we have one over here. Who's been to Lidl? Sean? No Lidl? So, you have? Okay, great. One more. Lidl? Yeah, we got one back here.
I've been.
All right, so we're known for our low prices and kind of warm store feeling. We are originally from Germany. We're actually a top 2 biggest retailer in the world as far as square footage and sales volume. In the U.S., we opened our first stores in 2017. We crossed 100 stores a couple months ago in the U.S., and we range from Atlanta Metro up through New York and Long Island. So we grow through our distribution centers. About 85–90% of what we sell is private label. So it'll be crackers that are not really a brand crackers, but distributed by us. And that helps us keep our costs down, and we're always evolving our product and sales offering. And at this point, I feel pretty good about our ability to serve a full American shop experience versus, maybe a couple years ago we weren't all the way there, but we feel like we are now. And, this is a market that we've been looking at for a while. Obviously, there's the county versus town dynamic in a close area here, and a big reason of why I'm here, and of course because I'm speaking to Don and his team about Crossroads, is just to get a feel of how this, which is pretty much our prototype rendering and facade design, how this is received within this development and the town, so that I can take some feedback to my higher ups to hopefully help push them into a final decision to come here. So that's kind of where I am right now. And I just want to explain the perspective of this. And I know we don't have the layout up next to it, but if you can envision the way the building was going north-south, with this being Washington Street, this rendering is actually a flip of the building. So if you were to flip it horizontally on its head, you would actually lay out properly. So like the loading dock is over here in this prototype. So I don't know if that was helpful, but anyways, yeah, we're known for our unique and European-based design, which has evolved to this point. We came in with 37,000 square foot stores originally, and we went down to where we are now, right around 31,000 square feet. We've kind of found a sweet spot. And this is our pretty side, which is pretty much all glass, that whole elevation, until you get to, of course, the CMU and brick veneer on the back. And then it's a mix of our faux wood material that you see at the main corner, and then a couple different sections in the back. And this doesn't show it so well right here, but these are some slats in here and right here of that same wood. So we're pretty excited about rolling this out. We've got a couple of this new prototype under construction, breaking ground in Chantilly and Manassas, kind of as we speak. So, yeah, my goal here is to take some feedback back to Lidl to try to get this thing approved. I know they would approve this architecturally, so I'm trying to understand if we're going to deviate. I want to help them visualize that and go from there. Is there a second page in here? Yeah, okay, good. So that helps a little more. So you can see the slats over here that are supposed to match the faux wood, stone wood panels right there.
So that top photo would be the view from Washington Street to the grocery,
Yes, but flipped.
but flipped.
So if
Okay.
you're on Washington Street, this and staring at the building, this would be here,
Okay.
and this would be there.
What you, that would be your 55 frontage.
Yeah. So, what do you all think?
It's a far cry better than your other property.
The original?
Oh,
Yeah, well, at least you know it looks like a grocery store a little bit. So. I mean, those are beautiful buildings in my opinion, but I don't know if you've seen those. It's like huge curved, long roof, tons of glass. They were super expensive, but people didn't know if we were a Porsche dealership or a grocery store. A lot of people honestly didn't think it was a grocery store. It's a big
Yeah.
problem.
Really?
So on this facade, you would have the angular, on the facade facing Washington Street, you would have that kind of high to low architecture?
Yes.
Okay. When I first looked at this, I thought that was the top elevation was the east facade, and I thought the bottom was the west facade against Chick-fil-A. But I think I understand what you're saying now, where that bottom is probably the facade you would see against the parking lot of Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
And then,
You know, they're both kind of flips, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go
I mean,
back to
this
the?
really would be our loading dock over here,
okay,
right? So this faces the Boulevard Road right here. I
That
know
would
This
face-
is what
okay.
faces Washington, but it's just flipped.
okay, so in the lower one, you'd flip it as, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna do two small screens, so give me just 1 second.
Okay. Oh, I see from that, so that kind of, that square brick,
Yeah.
that
pops
gray
out.
brick pops out would be on the
And
corner
to share a
down
little bit
there.
about layout, that's actually, we didn't used to have that. This is relatively new, and it's really our bathrooms.
That's what I was gonna say, that's,
Or that little bump out. And it just allows the sales floor to be completely clean without pushing into it.
Where's cart return?
So we have some right in front of the store, so right here,
Okay.
and then we would pick a couple locations ideally for parking lot, park corrals.
So in the bottom photo, that would be the piece that's hanging there on the right, but of course flipped in our test fit
Yeah.
layout.
Exactly.
That's what you would see if you were driving down the main boulevard
Yeah.
into the site, and you look to your left, that's what you would see, except for the storefront would be on the left,
Yeah,
and the loading dock would be on the far end on the right.
exactly.
and the west facade against Chick-fil-A would be very similar, I guess, okay.
Yeah,
And then
maybe a little more ephes, but, we're flexible.
where would the signs be positioned on these facades?
Yeah, I should send them to you, I should. Signage here, ideally on both sides of this,
Okay.
really, yeah.
How, and I'm sorry, because I know the audio is going in and out. Like in terms of the wood that's here on the building, like in comparison to the wood from the other properties, that more timber plank look, how different do those two? Is there a possibility of having another variation where it would be more aligned with what else is going to be in the site itself? And even, marrying this with what's in the site along with, what you see, like the Chick-fil-A, the CVS, and the pure brick kind of colonial look. I like the fact that it is, that it's not completely modern, but it does take the look, sort of combines the more historic brick and wood kind of look and puts a more modern flair on it. But I would want to know how different what does the wood look like in comparison to what's going to be in the rest of the site, and then even in terms of the colors. I know when we were looking earlier with the cobblestone and the Arctic white. Like how does this gray and this white, how different is it going to look from the cobblestone and Arctic white in the rest of the development?
Good question, and Don, I may ask you to help, but when you're asking about the wood and the rest of the development, are we talking about the board and batten?
No, so,
Which wood are you talking about?
can you pull up the signs? I think it's on the
Yes.
top, the latter part of that PDF. Yeah, so if you look here, what she has currently shown, that's a good representation of the wood that we're using on the property that's been approved. So you can see it's very close. I think probably the Lidl wood grain is possibly a bit slightly lighter, but it's awfully close to this, and this is what we're using on the project. So, yeah. And Lidl would have to speak to the fact if they'd have any issue with, since it's so close, all they would, we could give them our color match, and they could say, hey, we'll color match those things. We've got a slightly different gray, we'll match your slate gray. We've got a slightly different wood color, we'll match your wood color, and we could just give them all of those codes that would give them matching.
And I'm happy to run.
I mean, from a overall design, I like the design. I don't think it's, I think it's pretty simple, so I think it'll blend. I think that's my only question is, right, could there be another variation from Lidl on the colors, just so that you're already gonna see some differences in what you see in town, which is okay. I mean, but it would be, would there be too many competing color schemes and just build variation right off the bat? So it really would just be, I guess, not within really what the whole comprehensive plan is, the whole thought of the town as a whole.
Yeah, that's good input, and that's the type of thing I'd love to take to Lidl board and have some revised renderings done and see what they think, because, one way, we wouldn't really need this meeting if we just matched 100%, right? I assume that would get approved. So, that's my plan after this, is to do some variations based on the feedback I hear here, see what they think. And we generally do have some flexibility on this, but, part of me thinks that as you drive through, they're so close, these colors, that it really still would look good as is. But, we'd like to work with you all, and, if there's somewhere in the middle or some slight variations, we'd like to explore it.
Is the kind of stone water table area down here, is that gonna match the stone on the signs throughout the rest of the site, or is that an option?
Well,
Option the board likes?
we certainly can look at it. I think we'd want to change the other colors a little bit too. But, all options are on the table.
And the
No
reason,
pun intended. Water table.
the reason I brought that up is, does the stone option in the sign bring in more of the brown tones that you would see across the site and help blend your wood with the Arctic white with the gray brick and kind of bring it together there on the bottom while mimicking and matching the other structures and the signs? So, some things for us to think about.
I have some thoughts unless I can talk for all night, so I'll give someone else the floor before I start rambling. So,
Go ahead, we're listening.
the parapet walls match Chick-fil-A. So let me back up a second. So obviously colonial look of Food Lion. We've moved away from that.
Yeah.
Sheets, when Sheets came in, they had a more modern look that came back. And what they compromised, they had the franchise model, and what they looked at was the water table materials, so a more subdued red, changing the vinyl on the canopy, the columns that were part of the canopy structure. They had a lot of windows. The brick was more subdued. They had the gooseneck indirect lighting, and then the sign that you see on front. That's how they compromised. CVS, large walls. They were able to break that up with brick variation. Used EFIS to do some of the window, kind of faux windows, so that when you had these large walls, they were able to break it up, but they did have the parapet walls. Fauquier Bank moved away from that. They had the standard kind of arched or angled standing seam roofs. They had more of kind of the more traditional sort of downtown development, the Victorian and those types of things. Chick-fil-A looked at blending a lot of that. They had the metal caps like you have. They had the parapet walls. They borrowed the water table, the metal canopy. You see that throughout many elements of the town, so I think you blend a lot of the elements what's around it. The challenge is still keeping it distinguished. I think you, obviously the branding, you want people to recognize the Lidl. So I do appreciate you've moved away from kind of the arched kind of airline looking sort of thing, which I thought was interesting, but you had those large walls that weren't broken up. In this case, if this is to be the Washington Street facade, the glass is a good component. Again, the caps, the variations, I would agree that a darker wood would make sense, be more subdued, and probably weather differently. So if Lidl could look at opportunity to change, or at least darken the wood paneling on the corner.
Okay.
The block, when you switch that block, I'm sorry, was that Sharon?
Yeah, it would make it more complementary with existing buildings and what else is gonna go in.
Exactly. This distinguishes itself from the other buildings in the development and also the ones around it, which is good. The town, and I'm pointing, if you look through the comprehensive plan, it talks about, and I mentioned earlier, we're built over time. We want to have some unique architecture. We want to distinguish it, give you enough to recognize the franchise model, which is great you're in town. I think I should have started off by saying that. The fact that you guys want to be in town is great, especially in these economic conditions. The fact that you're wanting to invest, that's awesome, and we really appreciate you guys giving it consideration. The general footprint, perpendicular to the street, reducing kind of that elongate along the Washington Street's great. But the block where the bathrooms are, flipping that to the other side, compared to what's around it, that's a pretty big face. That's just that, go back up, Emily. That one on the corner on the right. The water table breaks it up, but if they could look at somehow breaking up that massing.
So you don't have a problem with the structure itself, you just want the color to be not.
I think overall the structure is great. It's just breaking, if you flip that brick to the other side next to Chick-fil-A, it's going to be kind of random. You're coming through town, you see a lot of variation, all of a sudden you have this stone square, but even though it transitions into the glass, which is good against the Washington Street, is there's a way to break up some of that. Sheets has done it with windows, with advertising behind it. CVS did it with kind of a faux window, which I don't know that you could do here, but if there's some way to look at breaking that up through some sort of architecture.
Go to that other elevation, the long building. See that, see here where they've put in some sunshade elements, like that's exactly what they did here to break that wall. And so they did it here, which is a canopy, obviously a steel canopy with a sunshade, and then they did that here, the same with that's a sunshade canopy type there. So something like that could.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
what might be a suggestion, something to kind of break that up, that wall.
Okay.
This facade against the western facade, it would, it's set far back enough. You have if you're driving west or driving east from 15, you're going to have Chick-fil-A blocking a lot of that facade. So that lower elevation does a good job of breaking up that scale and massing. It will likely be hidden between the landscaping, between both projects.
You're talking
Parking.
about the long elevation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good approach. The upper one, my suggestion would be, again, if you're flipping that block, breaking it up with the architectural elements that Don just mentioned. I'm not sure how the other LRB members were having that kind of that angular thing against Washington. I thought along the eastern facade made sense. But that does transition from the higher Chick-fil-A two-story parapet down to what may be the single-story elements on the Crossroads campus, if that makes sense.
Keep in mind, coming from Chick-fil-A though, you're gonna cross the face of the whole elevation before you get there, just want to.
Oh, it's the other way. You're going low to high. Okay. You're going low to high. And that's fine too, as long as you can break up that block, that square. The changes in the white, having the brick is a good element. I do agree that it blends well with the other elements of Crossroads, but does give it distinguishing characteristics. Overall, it's a good start. I appreciate you putting the effort into it. Just encourage you to look through the kind of the plan language that talks about community design on that end of town. So
Okay.
it's an easy read. You can fall asleep to it. Yeah.
I'm used to reading those, so I'll enjoy it.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. What?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else have any feedback, comments, questions? Sheridan, do you guys have anything else that you want to ask or say?
Yeah, I think a lot of questions have been answered. Whether or not the wood facing, the wood that would match the others, that was, I think, a really good point. I think, like he said, this is still definitely like something that he's been. I think other than that, my only concern was like the modern look, but I think having the wood on the wood facade really like helps it blend in with the town all while showing progress and how while we're still like a historic town, we're still modernizing. I think it's really cool to see it. I think it'll break the sometimes.
One other,
I agree with all that. I mean, I think the design itself is, I think there was just with some changes to make it a little bit more complementary, and it's really more on the color scheme as opposed to the actual design and the building structure itself. It would make it more complementary, and I agree. I think it's a nice look. It's clean and it's simple, and it's not completely contrary to what else we have in town. I think it's a nice touch. I like it.
I'm glad to hear. One other topic I'd like to bring up is signage. Our signage is not shown on here. Our Lidl logo and signage typically is a square sign that is our Lidl logo, which is a combination of yellow and blue.
Should we Google it?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can, on the next round, I'll throw them on here. But, and then with some channel letters or block letters, rethink grocery or food market, kind of moving to food market. So, I just want to talk through those colors, especially if the yellow and blue could be an issue.
Is there a specific?
Popped up here. I just, I mean, that second photo would be good. Any of those are really good. Not
Would
that,
that go on
Yeah,
the
do that.
wood? I mean, where does that go on the building?
on the wood on the corner.
On the wood, okay.
Yeah. Ideally.
Literally, remind me, I think we said that I think we said that we're allowing companies to put their own logos on there, but I think on the actual guide boards that we have, I think that's supposed to be black and white, right? I think that's what we agreed on.
On the monument, yeah, on the monument signs, yes, and then when they come in to propose their franchise logos and franchise signs, we were open to working with them on getting the best fit for the town, but also keeping the best fit for their company logos. So we were open for discussion, but we agreed that we would allow for some franchise trademarks. Thank you.
It's been a while, so I was just trying to remember whether or
Yes.
not, what the exact package was.
Did we allow black backlit or indirect?
Both.
Both?
Yeah,
Okay.
Actually, I think we showed this as part of the sign scheme, actually a Harris Teeter sign, which is like white, red,
Run up
and
real quick.
Okay.
green and green.
So most of the other commercial properties fronting Washington, we have allowed, or we've recommended the gooseneck lighting, but something to be considered later date.
I believe what we did on that, Marshawn, is if you recall some of this in the first image that we had there, some of the tenant spaces had gooseneck, like so, and then the other ones, there was
The end line?
Which color? Color, backlit.
Yeah. the serial here.
So as a suggestion, Chick-fil-A, CVS, Fauquier Bank sheets all had kind of the gooseneck on the frontage, the lighting that frontage to Washington Street, so there's something that you could think about, consider.
When you say fronting, what about our east elevation? Is that considered fronting too, since it's visible driving west?
I defer to the other members on that one. I mean, if it's gonna be that close, it would be a little odd to have the Washington Street one, the one be not, but just something to think about.
Okay. We've certainly dealt with that before. Ideally, we would have them backlit, and more importantly than anything is these colors as far as that signage. That's really a huge thing for us. But, you know, ideally backlit, but if not, you know, that's something that I would hope is not a deal breaker on our end.
Really, all of Sheets did was put up their backlit sign, turn it off, and then put the gooseneck on it. That's all they did. So they were still able to have some economies, you know, having to change or design a new sign. They just lit it in a different way.
I got you.
So-
Yeah.
So, Madam Vice Chair, if I may offer, so it sounds like the overall direction is a darker wood.
Match the, closer match this monument.
Correct, which I think would lessen some of the contrast. Looking at breaking up the bathroom architecture on the west side with some elements as Don described. Anything else?
I was gonna ask a question, and I don't know if this would work, so I'll just toss it out there for discussion. Is there an option that on the eastern facade that faces the boulevard, that one way you break up that back corner is by putting your signage there instead? Like, is that visible at all?
So facing the boulevard, are you talking back here? Or you're
That
talking about
piece,
this? So
that-
this faces Washington.
That faces Washington,
So,
so you wouldn't
Matt,
put it on the other side.
It's just that it's flipped.
Okay.
So like if you're driving west on Washington towards 15, you're gonna hit this first, so it's just flipped. So this will be back there, so,
Disregard.
okay.
Would be helpful when you submit it if you could have the three elevations correct with the east
Yes,
Washington and
definitely.
west. The lighting here, just as a sidebar, while you showed this, the corner facade that has is it the round sign? Look above, I'm sorry, look above that one right there. Okay. So the backlit sign is just the circle, it's not necessarily the whole,
What do you mean, the food market too?
no, right there, the way that's backlit, I was thinking, you know, food market and the whole sign was backlit. That example right there, just having the logo, I want to say over at Sheets in their canopy, they just have the lettering that's back. So that might be one, maybe
You're
one
saying
comp.
okay to have lettering backlit versus having the square logo? Or
No,
would you
I'm
say
sorry.
the opposite?
The example that Emily just brought up, the one on the corner,
Yeah.
not that one, the one in the middle that you just brought up,
Yeah.
that one. That one on the corner facade, I would suggest is one that has maybe the backlit solution on the corner there.
So doing without the food market,
Or if you have the food market, maybe have that
not.
indirect lit,
Okay.
and then have this one backlit with just the circle. I think that's the compromise we made on Sheets and the canopy. In the canopy, it was backlit, but on the building, it was indirectly lit. So maybe that's the way to strike the balance.
Say that one more time, just
Okay.
on the right page.
So the Sheets and the canopy, they backlit the,
Sorry, for this example, of which you prefer
one,
to see.
I guess, a suggestion, not that I prefer.
Correct.
We're trying not to be subjective.
No, you're correct.
A suggestion or recommendation would be incorporating that light scheme from that example, and then if you still wanted to have the food market, maybe look at that as indirect lighting.
So the suggested backlit logo
Legal would be back
and
and
indirectly
food market
lit
would be
wording.
indirect lighting.
Correct, just see how that looks. If it looks too odd, then not, but to me, that's a compromise between the standard or the precedent that's been set, and then giving you some unique,
Yeah, thanks. Can you go back to the elevations? Yeah, that one. So I think if you, think what I'm hearing say, but, well, first of all, the sign package that was approved does allow for tenant trademarked signs. So that, and then what we were showing on some of the buildings to break up some of that on the multi-tenant buildings where you had multiple tenants is the end caps, had some goosenecks.
Okay.
Which were designed that way. But the other tenants within the building had the right to do backlit, colored, their trademark signs. So that's what was approved. But one of the things I'm hearing say is if you could envision, I'm not the best architect ever, but if you did the Lidl lighted sign here, and then you did food market here with indirect lighting, because it would, I don't think it would look appropriate right next to one another like that. I think if you did it, the Lidl sign there and then food market here with indirect lighting, I think that could really solve the.
Same for the upper facade too, where if you had the Lidl on the wood panel
Here.
and then had food market on the white there, that's the same theme.
Yeah.
Would likely work, I think.
On both sides.
I think that's a great idea. I'm laughing at myself a little bit because I get all sorts of design updates like all the time. I saw something today about food market not sitting by itself, but we can deal with that later. That was a good thought. Yeah.
Only need food market on one.
Yeah.
People are going to know you're here. On the west end of Prince William County, people are going to know you're here. Thank you.
Are there any other
Thanks a lot.
items? Do you have any questions? You're on everything?
I'm good right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
thank
we
you.
can follow up in an email,
Yeah.
all of us to her. Okay,
Thanks for your time.
thank you. Okay, so, with that, we can move on to old business. Just an update, the hotel will start breaking ground around September 15th, and so that will, that'll be exciting. We will, of course, keep everybody posted. We'll send out notices, post to our website, so that all of our residents are aware. We also are working on some items with Van Meter. They are putting through their site plan. Right now, we're just in a first round of comments, so we will invite them in to go ahead and submit their application for the townhomes to the ARB, so we can start looking at the design features in there, as well as the Carter School, which is going to also be on the front of that property, up closest to Washington Street. So that'll come up soon. That's a new business item, but that will be coming up probably in the next month or two. So that's about all I have for old business. I will let Ayush do the planning commission update.
Actually, I had a question first.
Oh, sorry, hold on a second, Ayush.
Anything on the Pardo house?
Oh, yes, thank you. The blight notices were put out for the Pardo house, and I have been in touch with the property owner. She is working on trying to and get some things moving along, so I'll keep everybody posted on that as we have more updates.
Thanks.
Ayush, if you want to do the planning commission update?
Yeah, so we had a meeting on planning commission about upcoming something that is upcoming about the proper amendment on the Prince William
QBE.
County 1 hour review as well as the data center.
What was it?
I usually had a quick question for you. Was there any discussion over the design or screening of the data centers?
We wanted to know if there was any discussion on the design or screening. If you want, I can answer that. So there was not a discussion right now on the screening or the design. We discussed that as one of the concerns, but we were looking mainly at kind of our top comments to send back to the county for this. There was not a lot of detail. I do have all the applications, if anybody would like.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this was at Cat Harpin and Washington Street. You know, all the signs that were up there for a mixed-use town center. I guess all three corners, or the two corners, and then across the street, they want to do all data center. And one of them is a variation to go up to 70 feet.
Is that Microsoft or Amazon?
Anyone.
Oh,
What, part of my work in Loudon, you know, Loudon is known as kind of the data center alley. And telework has only increased the demand. And we're seeing along the 234 corridor, this spike in demand for data center. And I call them second and third and fourth tier sites, but it sounds like all the other great sites are open. So now they want to plop them in here.
So the sites that they're looking at, the one where the comments were due today is for this entire site here, and this is here. It's 45 acres, and it would be 4 data center buildings. And then there's another one that came in that is for all of this area right here. And then there's a third one that came in that's for this area here. So when you come down Cat Harpin, it's across and to either side.
Can you point where the house is? The house is right there on the,
The house is right here. And then the signs for the town center are in here.
so that's that light right there. Everybody familiar where it's at? So,
This is where you stop every day because traffic.
so that would be an odd transition from Gainesville into Haymarket. In Loudon, the big discussion has been on these lesser ideal sites is hiding in plain sight. Whether it's berming, vegetation, facades that look like office buildings. So if we do get past the initial infrastructure question, which I know Councilman Weir was talking about, I really feel like we should be able to push back on the aesthetics of what our gateway is going to look like, because that's just going to totally change our gateway into the town. That would be, especially 70 feet tall. So whether that's setting farther back from the road, whether it's, what's that?
He said they're not very pretty buildings.
Yeah, so there's a way to,
Well, they don't generate too much traffic. That's why I worked at a data center, so I know how much traffic they generally generate. So it's not a lot. I mean, initially it is because of just construction and them bringing in servers and stuff like that. Initially, you'll see an increase in traffic, but I think being that, you know, while they don't really look nice, but two, you know, they don't really hire very many, they don't really hire too many people either. So, you know, generally like, they tend to have maybe 2 to 3 people per data center, you know, on a shift rotation, and most of the people that are there are, either to make sure that like the power is running or secure. They generally do patrols and stuff. They're not exactly very pretty. I think they've done a better job recently to try and make them not look like warehouses and more like office buildings. Like they're not very nice. Having worked in them for years.
I would agree, from a land use perspective, they don't generate a lot of traffic. They pay a heck of a lot in taxes. This is right now, these are competing retail centers to our town, so if they were to develop as retail, they compete with us. So going to data centers may not necessarily a bad thing, but it would, I think our purview would be the aesthetics of it, if and when that opportunity ever arises, so, thank you. Keep talking, Marshawn. So, council update. Second meeting into the new council. A lot of it is just be revisiting policies and procedures. There's been some recent expenses on the town buildings. So it's been that's been a focus. Looking at COVID-19 monies, we got about $149,000 out of the earmark that was given to the county. So the council's debating on how to distribute that funds, a combination of to the local businesses. I live in Longstreet Commons, and I do know there's a need within Longstreet Commons. A lot of folks depended on the unemployment dollars during COVID, and that's ending soon. So a lot of folks are going to be in a pickle in terms of rents and mortgages. So I think the council's looking at all options to try to address that. What else? At one point, we'll be working with Emily to look at either the fees and also kind of the checklists and applications for all our land use applications. Anything else that oh, Haymarket Coffee, yes. Can I defer to you on that one? So, that's a neat idea.
Yes, just so everybody knows, the council approved for us to move forward with a public-private partnership to have Haymarket Coffee Company in the town museum. So this is a really unique opportunity for us because it allows us to open the museum back up every Saturday and Sunday for about half of the day. So we're very excited about it. They're going to do a soft opening this Sunday, and it'll just be in the parking lot while they're still organizing everything inside, but we're planning for a grand opening on the 29th. So that is 2 Saturdays away. And then also on the 29th, just so everybody's aware, we are doing a community cleanup with Keep Prince William Beautiful. So hopefully if you can't make it, maybe you can share with your neighbors or other people in the town that you know might be interested. So we'll meet there at the museum, and I know Haymarket Coffee is going to be open. Myself and Vice Mayor Tracy Lynn will be there, kind of having a little booth for the town. So
What was that date again?
the 29th. And
Thank you.
Start time is at 10 a.m. So the way they're going to do it, just in case anybody were to ask, we ask that you wear a mask. We'll have some available. You can come at 10. They're going to send small groups, and then there's going to be another start time at 10:30, so we can stagger people and do more social distancing. And we'll keep sharing that on Facebook. So if you guys are on Facebook, please help us share it out to the community.
Thank you, Emily, for initiating that. What's going to be interesting is that the Haymarket Coffee wants to promote town history. So locating the museum is to really promote the town and really get folks interested in the history. So I think it's a great Kickstarter. So thanks for vetting that. I was also asked to remind everyone, flags for our heroes. Is that on the website?
It will be on the website. We also have handouts there at the back that people can pick up.
So this is the memorial that's done at the park where they have all the individual flags on poles. And last year it was about 30 or 40. They'll light it up with the lighting. It's done for a couple of days, and they have a ceremony at the park. 100 this year? Wow. So we'll have more information about that, but that's quite I guess it was unclear whether or not they do that during COVID. Usually it's done in May, and now they're doing it Labor Day weekend. So that's great. Things are still going on. I think we already talked about Haymarket Day was canceled, obviously, so.
We will. Vice Mayor and I are working on some fun opportunities to have a small style event each month in between, since we can't have Haymarket Day. And also, did everybody get their newsletter in the mail? I have one for you, Miss We'll get you one. I'll make sure we have your address right. But we sent out our newest quarterly newsletter. So if you guys want to get feedback or if you have ideas for stories, people we need to highlight, businesses, etc., let me know. Our next one will go out the first week of October. All that I have.
Now, I'm thinking further down the line, are we gonna do like will we do like a Christmas tree lighting and all that stuff?
Yes, so the
Okay.
plan is that, and of course we have to check with funding and all that stuff, but the plan is to still offer some style of a Christmas tree lighting. And then I'm working with Vice Mayor to maybe come up with options that people can come up and have like a photo op or something for their holiday cards that they mail out.
Oh, great.
So we're kind of trying to think of some fun backdrops, whether it's in the museum, and Haymarket Coffee kind of helps us facilitate that on a Saturday, Sunday. And then do we have an outside one? Last year, we had several ornaments and trees that all lit up. So we plan to do that again. And then
Awesome.
we also were gonna do our town ornament, design, so I'm very excited about that. I'll have that design probably here in 2 weeks, and I'll share it hopefully at the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
We spent an inordinate amount of time at the council talking about the ornament, so, thank you.
Exciting time.
You can apparently buy a pack of all the previous ones. If you want to buy a holiday pack of all the previous ones, you can do that too.
Deal. It'll be great.
Thanks for doing that.
That's everything. I guess we can look for a motion to adjourn.
A motion? Can I?
Sure,
second. Thank you.
All in favor?
Bye.
Bye.